This video is dedicated to my dearest friend Carol.
Welcome to Cheese Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make spam musubi. It is one of my kids' favorite snacks. It's great for an appetizer. So spam musubi, I can't help it but give you a little bit of a history lesson. It's actually a Japanese American dish. The Japanese part is where you have the nori seaweed paper and the rice, and the American part is where the spam meat comes from. So spam is made by Hormel. It's pork with salt and other things in there, and it defines the dish. You just gotta have to make it with spam. So here are all the ingredients you're gonna need. You're going to need some nori seaweed paper. You can use any kind. You can get it at any Asian market. You're gonna need some rice, short grain rice. Okay. And so it's also called sushi rice, but it's short grain basically. Then you'll need some rice seasoning. This is called nori, komi, furikake. And be careful when you get this. Make sure you get the kind that you can see there's a lot of sesame seeds in there as well as seaweed. Some of them come with basically just seaweed paper. It's all black and there's not a lot of flavoring and taste. So I like this brand because it has just the right amount of seasoning to give you that kick. And this is what the nori paper looks like. You also need a musubi mold. This is called a double-sized mold that you can get anywhere. I got from Amazon. Okay, so this will make actually one long double-sized musubi wrap that we're going to cut in half later. And of course you're going to need a skillet to grill your spam meat on. And I also have ready a little cake pan here, but it's really to store water. And what I use that for is I keep my musubi mold in there, and I keep my little spatula to spoon out rice with, because once you have rice in this mold and rice on the spatula, it can get kind of sticky. So that's why I have a little bit of water there. So first, what we gotta do is we gotta make the rice. So first you need to rinse your rice in water until the water turns out clear. Okay? And then what you do is you just cook it in a rice cooker. And while the rice cooker cooks, we're gonna make the mousse. So if you're unfamiliar with how to make sushi rice, it's pretty easy. So we start with 4 cups of uncooked rice. That means you're gonna need 4 cups of water. But what's nice is your rice cooker comes with a little basin inside, and you just dump the rice in the ones you've already rinsed it. And then just pour water in and watch the water level rise. Inside the basin there are markings, like 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups. So what you want to do is just keep pouring water until the water level rises to the mark that says 4. That means you have 4 cups of water. Then you're good. You just put the basin back in the rice cooker, close the lid, and push start, and wait for it to cook. That's it. Alright, so while the rice is cooking, I'm going to open up a can of spam. So to do this, we just open up the top. Okay. And to get it out, what I do is I use a dull knife, and I just stick it in along the edges to kind of nudge it out, and then turn the can upside down, and it's going to come out. Here I have my can of spam. I'm going to stick the knife along the edges, as you can see right there. And I try to do it very gently so I don't cut. I'm kind of nudging it out, and the meat is coming up. There you go. What you want to do now is slice this block of meat into 8 slices, since we are making 8 musubi wraps. So here I'm going to cut it in half. Now I'm going to cut this into 4. So first into half. And cut this one into half. So here are my slices of Spam. This recipe calls for 2 cans of Spam, so you should have in total 16 slices. What we're gonna do next is we're going to grill this on a skillet. Don't use any oil, just a dry skillet, probably on medium heat, and then we're gonna lay this onto the skillet and grill it. All right, I think my skillet is getting hot, so I'm gonna start placing the musubi on the skillet. Depending on the size of your skillet, you might only be able to fit maybe 5 or 6 at a time. You can hear the meat is sizzling. So just gonna let it sit there for a while, probably for maybe a minute, until the other side starts to get browned and a little toasted, and then we'll flip it. I think the musubi is about ready to be flipped. Oh, nice. If you look at the color there, kind of a nice, rich, toasted brown. It's not burnt, but a little bit has a grilled effect. This is perfect. Okay? And you might have to flip it back and forth a few times to get this kind of a nice toasted look. We're gonna let it sit for another couple minutes there so the other side gets browned as well. Our Spam is now finished cooking. This is the finished Spam. It's got a nice, gorgeous brown color. It's got a crispy all along the edges. This is exactly how it should look like. All right, so our rice is cooked. What I do is I keep the rice still in the rice cooker so it stays hot. We want the rice to stay hot so that the rice grains will bind together and make a nice, nice musubi wrap. So here's the setup I have. I put a sheet of nori paper on my working space. And if you look at the nori paper, it has vertical lines going down. So I like to put the vertical lines going this way so that when I roll, it'll be the opposite way, the perpendicular. Okay, so what we do next is we take our musubi mold and put it on, like in the middle of the nori paper. And we're gonna scoop in some rice. This is where personal preference comes in. I like very thin layer of rice. You might like a little thicker, so it's up to you how much rice to put in here. I like mine thin. Okay, so as you can see, I'm barely putting any in here. Just add a little bit more in this corner. We don't want any gaping gaps. And then what I do is I take the press part of the mold and I press the rice down. So you put it in here and you press. That just flattens down the rice. As you can see, it comes right out because I'm submerging in water so it doesn't stick to the rice. Now we're going to sprinkle in some seasoning. Then we put in 1 slice of Spam, another slice. What you'll notice here is there's a gap here, which is perfect because later we're gonna cut this into half. After that, we put in another layer of rice. This is one of my favorite part of the recipe, putting it together. It's kind of like a, making a mold of food, so it's kind of fun. You'll get the hang of it. See, I see a little bit of a gap here, so I'm gonna add a little bit of more rice. We don't wanna see gap. Then I take the press, I'm gonna press down the rice. And it lifts right up. So this part, to lift the musubi mold, I'm gonna put my fingers to hold down the rice a little bit, and I'm just gonna take one edge of the mold and lift it out. Very nice. It came out nice and easy because it was submerged in water. And now I just fold the nori paper. So there's a seam now. I'm gonna put the seam face down so that it can bind tightly. And there's your double-sized musubi wrap. Later, let's let it sit for 5 minutes for everything to bind together, and then we'll cut it down to size later. So now we're gonna make the rest of the other 7 musubi wraps. Now that our musubi wrap has been sitting out for about 5 minutes, everything should be binding together now. What I use is I use a serrated knife, and I did run a little bit of water through it so it won't stick to my rice. And I just go down the middle and cut. That's a very nice, now you have 2 full-size musubi wraps. Thank you for joining me at Cheese Kitchen. Come back soon. I will have another recipe to try with you. Looking forward to seeing you again. Bye.